Thanks, Tim, and thanks for inviting us to present to you today. We're very interested in the whole issue of foundation skills in the workforce. Just tell you a bit initially about the Australian Industry Group. But before I do, I'd like to apologise on behalf of Megan Lilly, who did this same presentation in Brisbane earlier this week, who's our Head of Workforce Development. She's unavailable today. We will also be talking about a report that we have done by one of our managers in our policy department, Michael Taylor, and he's unavailable, so I got the short straw to come along to Sydney. So I wasn't actually involved in the preparation of the report, but I certainly know about it. The Australian Industry Group is the largest individual employer organisation in Australia. Our members employ more than 1 million people, and they are engaged in many sectors of the economy, including manufacturing, engineering, construction, automotive, food, transport, information technology, and many other industries. We have about 11,000 members. Fluctuates, as you imagine, with the state of the economy. Being an employer group, we're vitally interested in the competitiveness of Australian industry, and we recognise that competitiveness requires a comprehensive skill development strategy, and that it has to happen in business, government, and needs support in the community as well. And we believe that foundation skills are a vital part of that overall strategy. And that's why I'm here today and why we released this report. We're certainly supportive of the thrust of this conference and the other ones. But we're putting out our own message as well about the importance of foundation skills. Before I go on, I thought I'd actually read out to you something that was mentioned at another conference I went to last week. One of the biggest sectors that we represent is manufacturing. The National Manufacturing Week was held out at Homebush last week, and there was a breakfast seminar by Siemens, by some of their international heads located in Germany. And they were talking about what has been come to know as Industry 4.0. I would encourage you to read about that. But basically, people who analyse manufacturing talk about a number of different major developments over time. So if you can imagine back in the 17th, 18th century, there was the first industrial revolution, then the Model T Ford and all large volume manufacturing came on. Then after World War II, there was a lot of focus on efficiencies, lean manufacturing, creative production systems. So the fourth big development is the rise of this whole digital disruption that Tim talked about. And it's happening in industry as well as in the community. And Siemens was talking about how manufacturing has been transformed. And I won't go into it too much, but they talked about 4 trends: big data, advanced analytics, major developments in human-machine interfaces, which is a lot of what we're actually talking about today, and digital to physical transfer. Siemens has set a policy, they were saying, of what they call digital twinning, of not designing anything physically before it has been fully designed digitally. So if you want to work as a designer with Siemens, you will have to be very, very digitally capable. The days of making the individual prototype by hand, they're rapidly going out. So that's one of the biggest companies in the world talking about, from their own perspective, this rise in the digital capability needed by workforce and their processes. We're going to head down that path. It's not just the very high-end design skills that might be needed by engineers and others that we have to be concerned about. We have to also look at the importance of what leads to capability in that digital world. That's the report that we did and released earlier last year. The importance of foundation skills, what our current situation is, what employers are saying. And we've been invited to present on that today because we think it's a good background for you to have. What's actually happening out there in the workforce, how are employers thinking about this issue of what we could label as foundation skills. This slide shows the internet penetration rate for Australia, Europe, the Americas and Asia Pacific. It shows graphically by the size of the dots the relative population of those 4 areas, and through the graph it gives the rise in internet penetration rate from 2005 to 2015. Australia, as you would expect, has very small dots. We have low population compared to Europe, the Americas and Asia Pacific. Yet we have the highest internet penetration rate. And we have actually had that all the way through from 2005 to 2015. There's lots of implications for that, but one of the major implications for our members, what happens if we face a significant shortage in digital skills capability in the economy and in industry. This digital capability, there's a quote there on the slide that says that will become a basic skill set for the future workforce. The teaching of digital literacy skills must continue in the tertiary education and be a core component of ongoing workplace skills development. Obviously, there are equity, accessibility and economic implications for that. The information on the slide comes from the ITU, International Telecommunications Union World Telecommunication Indicators Database. The change in the rate reflects changes in the economy as well as in the community. The rise of the service industries, the rise of high technology, type of things that Siemens was talking about, happening in lots of industries, manufacturing, transport, construction and other industries. This next slide shows the employment in occupational groups by education level. It's showing a progression from 1998 to 2009, and it shows that from 1998 there's been a decrease in employment, proportion of employment, of occupations with low and medium educated workers, and the growth in occupations associated with high education workers. It reflects the growing demand in the economy for skills associated with more sophisticated tasks, as the jobs themselves increasingly involve analysis and communication of information. The graph that I have up shows actually a relatively short period of 10 years and shows fairly dramatic change. If we would go back even further, we would have seen that trend starting a long time before the beginning of this graph. What are the implications for foundation skills? On this particular slide, I'm showing the occupation by employment category in the changes that have happened from 1993 to 2014. It's a further breakdown of the previous slide and over a slightly longer period. The two rises you can see on this slide, the two categories which have had a rise in the employment portion of the workforce are the professional sector and the services sector, occupations associated with professionals, occupations associated with the service sector, defined here as community and personal services. The other categories on the slide which have had a decline are labourers, machinery operators and drivers, salespeople, clerical and administration, technicians and trades. Professionals have had an increase, as I said, and managers, the occupational category, labourers, managers, has stayed to the same proportion. And that's come from ABS data. I apologise for this slide for those of you that are trying to read it, and I'll just talk about it. So, it's literacy proficiency among adults, and it's got a whole range of countries listed there. And it's data released by the International Survey on Literacy and Numeracy by the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, often abbreviated as PIAC. And it shows Australia's position against a whole range of other countries, about 20. In regards to literacy proficiency, it shows that 44% of Australians had skills below the PIAC level of 3, which is regarded by that organisation to be the minimum requirement to operate effectively in workplaces and society. The PIAC level 3 is roughly equivalent to the Australian Core Skills Framework level 3. So, you can see there the countries that we're being compared against. I think I'll read some of them out, with Japan, Finland, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway. Most of the European countries are listed. It's a similar situation but worse when we move on to the next slide and look at numeracy proficiency among adults. In regards to numeracy proficiency, that survey shows that 55% of Australians had skills below level 3. And that was a deterioration in our previous results. So it is clear that literacy and numeracy problems persist in the adult population. And from there we could presume in the general workforce that there is similar issues. There could be many reasons for that. Our migrant intakes have changed over the years. Our portion of people interested in going on to further study, just changes in education. It doesn't actually give an attribute cause, but certainly the data is worrying. We decided to report on a lot of these issues from the point of view of our members, what employers are saying. So on this next slide, what it shows is the impact of low literacy and numeracy on business. So we asked the companies in this report to tell us what they regarded as their impact in the workplace of low literacy and numeracy. I'll just read through the headings. Teamwork problems and communication problems were reported by 28% of the companies. Recruitment difficulties was 12%. Financial miscalculations was nearly 9%. Staff lacking confidence, unwilling to take on new work was 19%. That was a particularly important, that's 1/5 of the workforce. not only having confidence, but associating that with an unwillingness to take on new work. You know, at a time, as I said, when places like Siemens or others are talking about how quickly technology has changed, to have a fifth of the workforce expressing a reluctance to take on new work, possibly associated with new technology, is a real concern. Material wastage, material errors, non-compliance with standards, and what that could be technical standards, I don't mean behaviour standards there, was 31%. Potential for workplace injuries or unsafe work practices, 15%. Time wasting, and not deliberate time wasting, but the low literacy and numeracy causing jobs that take normal than the standard time, take longer than the standard time. From the point of view of a company or a customer, that's the waste. Someone's wanting a service delivered or a product made, and this low literacy and numeracy is in effect creating a time waste. Poor completion of documents and reports was 41%. So obviously there's a there's a negative impact here on productivity, on labour mobility, and the capacity of the economy to achieve the higher level of skills needed for the new knowledge digital-based economy. 93% of the surveyed employers reported that low levels of literacy and numeracy were having an impact on their business. This is another slide that probably a bit hard to read for everyone. It shows the impact on low literacy and numeracy on businesses by their size, by company size. We tried to disaggregate to see whether the previous slide varied by the size of the company that was reported. So we categorised the respondents into small, medium and large employers. The data, I think Tim's going to distribute the slide, it's available. The impact is there across all levels of business, and as you can see, it has both soft skill capability and technical skill capability examined. You can look on this slide and you can see that the teamwork problems were higher as the companies got bigger, which isn't really surprising. You know, there's more informal communication with smaller companies. There tends to be more formal communication as the companies increase in size. Recruitment difficulties, interestingly, were significantly higher for medium-sized companies. So medium-sized companies were saying that they had recruitment difficulties for because of low literacy and numeracy.
I'm just wondering, these graphs that you're putting up are pretty bad, but what I wonder in the responses that these employers are actually saying is the workforce has been cut back an awful lot, so less people are doing more work within the workforce. And also employers aren't actually employing people at higher levels because they don't want to pay for extra wages, so therefore they're employing people at a lower skill level anyway. So isn't some of these results that you're seeing actually caused by what employers are actually doing in the workplace and not actually the employees per se?
We're not. None of this is about saying that this is caused by employees. Just to be clear, we're saying this is an impact of low literacy and numeracy and lack of foundation skills. So just to be clear, we're not saying this is in any way a causal thing caused by employees.
Well, they're actually saying that their employees are not doing reports quickly as what they're expecting them to do.
Yeah,
obviously, because people in the workforce have got so much to do, they can't get the reports out on the time frames that are being asked of them. So obviously they're going to be late. You know, you're going to have communication problems with people that are not being employed at the right level because they won't pay for people at that level. So
I don't want to generalise
impact
that much, but what we're saying here is about capability, you know, about saying is a load. We ask the employers, we didn't ask the employers, we
No,
ask
but
the
that's
employers,
Well, the employer's responses are based on their employees' productivity within their organisation, and they're impacted by the decisions that they're making in employing people. So, you know, they're very negative graphs, and I agree there is a literacy and numeracy problem within the the environment and workforce that we work in. But obviously these figures that you're putting up are being skewed. They're not actually reporting correctly. From experience working in the workplace and being a manager, I know these things are happening. So I see what you're putting up, but I see the picture as being worse, being shown worse than what it really is, because a lot of it is based on what these manufacturers are actually doing in the workplace when they're recruiting people and how they're cutting back staff to basically increase their bottom line. So, you know, what you're saying here has got some benefit and does support some issues, but it is very much skewed.
Well, I'm not going to, I guess, get into saying skewed, partly because, as I said, I wasn't associated with the conduct of the report. But there's certainly no deliberate skewing. You know, this is a recording of responses of a very large sample of employers to these issues. Now, I think it's pretty easy to find examples of good and bad employers or good and bad practices and so on. One of the reasons why we do this is to try and get a large sample to overcome some of those problems. I think employers, you know, as much as anyone, want to make sure that they have a skills capability for the work they need done in their workplace. And there's lots of strategies for that. One of the strategies, obviously, is to try and encourage people to recruit the right people and train for the right skills that they need and so on. I don't agree that there's any skewing. I have to say that. I think you could at an individual level, like you can in a lot of things, find good and bad examples. I certainly don't agree that there's a generalised skewing. That's my question.
Aren't these issues something also, I understand what the other lady's saying, I agree with her, but also education, you know, the standard of education before they get to the workforce. Doesn't that affect this as well?
Yeah, for sure. What happens, that's why we as an employer organisation try, we are one of the most active of the employer organisations trying to be involved with education at all levels, including vocational education, secondary education. You might have heard Megan, that she can't be here today, has been very, very active on a whole range of debates on STEM skills, foundation skills, and saying that we need to make sure that there is the best possible connection between education and the skill needs in the workforce and how those skill needs are changing. I agree with you. You know, education is certainly a part of all this. Yeah, I'm getting a bit of a hung up. I'll take some more questions at the end. I'll just quickly finish off running through this slide. And just to be clear, these are recording, if you like, error rates rather than deliberate actions, just on the basis of that. There are differences by size of company on a few of these that are significant. The bottom category, which is core completion of workplace documents and reports, the medium and larger companies are recording a much higher rate than the smaller ones. Partly again because they're larger, they're dependent on more formal types of communication. We asked the companies to report on what strategies they would look at to improve literacy and numeracy in their workplace. The 5 categories were internal company training, English as a second language training, skill development support from supervisors or mentors, communication skills development training, and workplace English language and literacy training. The most common response was skill development support from supervisors or mentors, and participation in the work well program was quite low at 7%, which actually continued a pattern from the 2012 survey, where it was 7.1%. One of the most interesting findings from this slide is the strong emphasis that employers place on internal strategies. This slide shows an overall response from employers, but again there were some differences by size of employer. The largest response from large enterprises was around, as I said, the supervisors and mentors. Internal company training was the largest response for small companies. The percentage rise for well rises actually to 21% for large companies. As you know, the well program doesn't operate anymore, but it seems to indicate that the larger the company, the more access they had to programs, the more access, engagement they had with government assistance, government activities. On this slide, and I won't read it all out, it breaks down the previous slide, the strategies to improve literacy and numeracy, and breaks it down by company size and shows the variation between small, medium and large. And you can see that there are some significant variations there by the company size, with that 31.6% there down the bottom for large companies standing out, and the medium companies at 28% for the skill development and supervisors or mentors. The Australian Industry Group has been advocating for 4 activities or strategies. One is an in-out foundation skills strategy. We want to see a new national program aimed at trying to promote, fund and improve our foundation skills capability, especially in the digital area. We have been promoting and saying to companies, and companies have been reporting to us, that there is a positive return on investment for training in foundation skills. This positive return obviously operates at an individual level. However, our research shows that it also operates at the enterprise level. And because of the trends in technology and workforce composition that I mentioned earlier, the need to focus on foundation skills will only become more important. It's also important to understand that the return on investment in the foundation skills, we are not promoting as an alternative to investment in vocational training or other forms of education. We see them as going together and complementary. We have moved on, and just to finish off, we've now established 3 pilots using units from the Foundation Skills Training Package to actually try and examine the best way to deliver foundation skills in the workplace. Those pilots in New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. Those pilots are underway now. We've been monitored, but it's too early to report on any data at the moment. The report that I talked about is available on our website that I've listed there, www.aigroup.com.au. I've given Tim a copy as well. The person who actually has completed the report, who can give you a much more detailed summary and information, if you're happy to take any calls. I've listed his contact details there, Michael Taylor, and I'd like to thank him in Quantum and all of you for letting me speak. I'm happy to take some questions.